Hello everyone. We deliver this talk event in collaboration with Japan Media Arts Festival, overseas promotion by Agency for Cultural Affairs of Japan and Annecy International Animation Film Festival 2021. The topic of this talk event is expanded animation, so we organize several talk events relating to this topic, and this is part of it. For further information regarding expanded animation, please have a look at the website, and you can get access to both English and Japanese videos. Belatedly, so let me introduce myself. I am Nobuaki Doi, serving as a moderator today. I work for a company called New Deer, in charge of importing international independent animation to Japan. Plus, I work as an artistic director for New Chitose Airport International Animation Festival 2021, introducing a wide range of the HE animation expressions within and outside of Japan. So now, let's get to the point. Today, we have the winner of the 24th Japan Media Arts Festival's Entertainment Division Grand Prize, Mr. Kenji Iwaisawa, with us, talking about the theme Live Action Meets Animation, creating On-Gaku, Our Son. And thank you for joining us, Mr. Iwaisawa. Thank you for inviting me today. So can you please introduce yourself at the outset? Yes, of course. I am Kenji Iwaisawa, director for On-Gaku. This work, On-Gaku, so it employed a rather unique production method compared to the other Japanese animation. It took about 7.5 years to create this animation work on my own. So making animation independently on one's own is not well known in Japan yet. But so today, in the session, or should I call it program? So if I could give some insight or make viewers interested, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Iwaisawa. Without further ado, so let's watch the film trailer here to see what this work is like. So if you watch this preview, you can have an idea about this work. So this is a trailer for the international audience.
Ota, Asakura.
なんだケンジ。
バンドやらないか。ベースってなんだよ。
ベースは低い音が出るやつだよ。
ドラムはどれ持っていけばいいの？
持てるだけ持ってけばいいよ。
あんたたちって本当にいい加減ね。
じゃあ行くぞ。
せーの。
素晴らしい。我々古美術と一緒に8月に行われるロックフェスに参加しませんか？
フェスってライブ？すっごいじゃん。
なんだか本格的になってきたな。
いつも無視しやがって、あのうんこ野郎。
悪いがそんなバカな相手をしてる暇はない。俺たちは今音楽に夢中だから。
俺バンド始めてよかったよ。
俺も。
僕から音楽取ったら何もないですし。
男らしくていいんじゃない？私は好きだよ。
みんなでやった方が楽しいから。
あのリコーダーを奪い取れ！
今から俺たちのことはミュージシャンと呼びなさい。
ミュージシャン？
そうだ、敬意を込めてな。せーの。楽しみにしてなさい。
Okay, so that was a trailer for On-Gaku. As Mr. Iwaisawa mentioned earlier, it took 7.5 years to create this feature animation film on his own by using rotoscope with more than 40,000 pieces of the drawing. And this work has drawn a lot of the attention and excitement overseas ever since the release. So this work has won the Grand Prix prize of the feature film competition category at the Ottawa International Animation Festival, as well as the Best Original Music Award for the feature film at the Annecy last year. So in Japan, OHASHI Noburo Award at the Mainichi Film Award was granted for the expression with an edge. The theatrical opening day was back on January 11th, 2020. The audience turnout has exceeded 40,000 despite of the COVID-19, which obviously hampered the theater operations. But there was a lot of sensation and this work turned out to be a smash hit. So your work has been distributed by the G-Kids in the US and the Eurozone in France. And so you are seeing that your work is now spreading from US, Europe to even Asia as well. So I would say that you have lived for this work. So that is my impression. And it's been 18 months since the completion of this work. And it's been played at International Film Festival after receiving several awards, and this is highly evaluated in Japan too. So there is a lot of audience, and it is going to be distributed by the international companies as well. So a lot is going on. So what do you take on this? Well, in the production process, I was thinking about the Japanese market. And of course, I think a bit cheeky to say this, but I could imagine that my work would be penetrating to the Japanese market somehow. So, having said that, the result was what I had expected. Of course, I couldn't foresee the pandemic of the COVID-19, so on the other hand, I had no idea as to response or evaluation towards my work from overseas markets. So in receiving Grand Prix Award at Ottawa, I went there and watched my work together with audience, so I could see directly audience reaction. So it seemed that they are enjoying my work. But having said that, I'm very surprised at such a good reaction from international audience. That is not what I was expecting for. Okay. So you could imagine the domestic reaction, right? Well, in line with today's topic, expanded animation, so you, Mr. Iwaisawa, connected live-action film and animation by using rotoscope. So your background, first of all. So you have plenty of experience in live-action films, and based upon that experience, you make animation now. And possibly you had in mind that this film was going to be released as an independent film. So can you tell us your background and how you ended up with making animation? Okay. I am 40 years old now. When I was around 18, I joined the film industry and started working under legendary director in this industry, Mr. Teruo Ishii. That was the starting point in my career. So I got involved in making live-action films and wanted to be a director in this segment. And I myself did make some live-action films on my own. But I felt it didn't suit me and realized that they were not fun works. And long time back, in my childhood, I liked to draw pictures and manga. So that brought me to the animation. I just wanted to try animation out of my curiosity. I wasn't that interested in animation and didn't see them carefree. But if I had to stay in the live-action segment, I didn't think I could have been successful, but I had no idea as to how to create animation. So I thought it would be all right if I trace or stick to what I have learned in live-action production. So I said I can do it in my mind. That is my background leading to who I am now. So you mentioned just by tracing what you have learned, but did you already hear something about rotoscope? or watch any work using that method? No, not really. I didn't know anything about it. My first ever animation work took almost 5 years because I was working in different places. And I applied my first ever work to the Independent Animation Film Festival. And at the venue, some judges were talking about rotoscope, and okay, there was a rotoscope, so there was a time when I first knew about it. So you're doing it without knowing what rotoscope was? Well, you're right. But, this was a case in the early days of Disney. Always. So I gradually understood what this was all about. So at first you are making a short film, right? Yes. But this time around, you tried the feature animation film, which I think is a quite big deal. And you touch upon your first animation work taking 5 years. Making of the feature film is quite time-consuming. Was there any hesitation going to the feature film? I made several more short films after that and applied to the Independent Film Festival. But they deal with short live-action films and short animation films altogether in the competition. So of course that was a good opportunity for me to get to know creators of the short live-action films and animation as well. But my works were played to the quite limited people. So I realized if I keep making short films, I can't grow my works into a larger stage. As I said earlier, I joined this industry because I wanted to be a director. It's impossible if I keep doing this. But almost no one was making the feature film on one's own back then when I started making it. I thought if I do this, my work will be high profile and I might draw some sensation if I make a feature film on my own rather than keeping making short films. So I knew what you said, that was time-consuming, but I just started doing it. Okay. Well, Japan is said to be an animation country. So when it comes to animation in particular, a feature animation film, there is a standardized format for the commercial purposes. So under such circumstance, so that is a situation we are facing. So independent film artists you had a close contact with in the past are rather focused on short films. Not so many of them are willing to go beyond such a traditionally established boundary. Of course, we have had an exception like Midoriko by Mr. Keita Kurosaka, which is a feature animation film created by himself. So your work, On-Gaku, reached a smash hit. So this is a quite rare case, I mean. So Mr. Makoto Shinkai is another big exception. He started his career as an independent film artist, but he is now a quite well-known filmmaker. So what I want to say here is that in Japan, I've been seeing a link between independent short film makers and feature films. On the other hand, if you have a look around the overseas markets, some independent feature animation films have been nominated to the Academy Awards, for example, The Boy and the World from Brazil, which, by the way, my company is distributing. Some of these film artists started their work from the small scale. At the end of the day, it turned out to be the big work and receiving a good reputation. So I myself have been looking for a new expression through growing animation culture. And in the 2010s, a lot of the brand new interesting feature animation films emerged. I prefer the short films and the experimental films originally, but I have come to appreciate feature animation films for the last 10 years. And these works have been made nearly independently and grown and reached international audience. So independent works have made a contribution to this trend, and your work, Mr. Iwaisawa, is included. So this video recording took place on the day of the Academy Awards ceremony, which is, I think, going on now. And last year you were zeroing on the Academy Award. But this year you can't make it, unfortunately. So in the future, going forward, are you now award hungry? Well, Academy Awards are quite influential and well known to the general public. So in that sense, Academy Awards would give me a better creative environment in many senses. So I want to have my works going forward to be associated with the Academy Awards, but not really wanting to get the award, but I want to go there someday in the future. Speaking of the awards, at the Media Art Festival by SEA, you received awards for the animation category with your short films in the past. This is my understanding. But this time around, you applied your work to the entertainment division, which deal with everything, say games, TV commercials, and apps, and so forth. So did you want your work to be regarded as a piece of the entertainment? Was that your intention? Yes. This is animation, but this is a film, and it is entertainment. Usually, independent animation film artists would rather express what they want to express in their works without taking into account entertainment elements much, which I think is good. But in making a feature film, so what I thought through, so if I express myself in it, what I want to do in it, because it is longer than the short films, audience will be bored. So I consider entertainment elements in the course of the production of On-Gaku. But usually, their own and unique expressions are very much focused. So, but this time around, I made this work with audience in mind, and I took on some challenges with this work. So that is why I applied to the entertainment division without consulting with anybody. So I just decided on my own. The personal reason. But you did it and got a grand prize. Wow, which is amazing. And it's quite interesting to hear you saying the entertainment for yourself. And I found your work a bit unique, but it has entertainment elements as well. And you created the feature animation film from the original Shoto manga work by Hiroyuki Ohashi. And we have a lot of international viewers today with us at this talk event. And Mr. Ohashi is very famous in the industry in Japan. But his name recognition overseas isn't so high as in Japan. So, Mr. Iwaisawa, are you close to him? Yes. We used to have the same part-time job, and we live nearby now. So naturally, so we became friends. And his manga works are quite interesting and also simple. And his drawing has a lot of the space. So what I thought was, I could put some in the spaces when making a film from his work. So that's the reason why I chose his work. So when we usually do this, mostly we choose original work with a great popularity, but I decided to make this ongaku work on my own independently, so I can do whatever I wanted to do. So, and plus we are friends, and it was very easy for me. Okay. And why did you choose On-Gaku? Well, if I say this to you, you would be disappointed. The reason why I chose On-Gaku was this work was the longest among his works, around 100 pages. So with that amount of the information, my work would have been 40 minutes long. So the biggest reason is the longest. And Ongaku is not one of the series. So I can imagine how characters behave and background works vis-a-vis my film work. So you mentioned spaces. So it is possible for manga to have some spaces, but in animation film, you draw something in spaces, unlike short films, which utilize those spaces. Because you decided to make this film independently, so did you stick to the sense of beauty, or did you have some pragmatic reasons, say energy saving this way? So which one is applicable? Well, like the first ever work, basically, usually, I draw a lot. And his work consists of the simple drawings. So which makes me and makes my work easy. And also, in the latter half of Ongaku, there is a festival scene where I put my own touch, made image density higher, so expressing my own style. So easy to work is something I took into the consideration. So you can try to express different style and touches. Indeed, I can try different ways to express for my first ever feature film. Yes. But it took more than 7 years to complete it. I can imagine that you had to some extent hard time. So let me ask you about the production method more concretely. You used rotoscope, where you did shooting on location and created animation. Do you have anything to share, to show to us now? I used rotoscope, where we did shooting on location and then drew and created animation. Recent some animation films with rotoscope are rather closer to the live action film. But Ongaku focused on characters originating from the manga piece. But on the other hand, I wanted to follow the movement coming from characters on shooting. So it has some elements of it too. I struck a balance between the two. So when I watched your film shooting, it was more like a rehearsal hall where you were eating something there altogether. No problem? No problem at all, yes. We did shooting, say, community center, so all we had to do was shooting. So community center was enough. Of course, I know we should have something, we should have improved something. But this is what I realized after shooting. Did you have already the clear image of the complete work? Did you try camera work, zoom in or zoom out there? So I prepared the storyboard for shooting on location. And of course, I observed how actors played and rearranged the camera work. So the way you did has become quite common. Director of the Evangelion, thrice upon a time, did a test shooting for camera work only. I really agree with him. To put some new elements into animation, I think this approach, the shooting and then creating animation, can be one of the choices. So depending on the way we do this, we can reduce production costs, so leading to the higher level of efficiency. And director of The Girl Without Hands, which was an award winner at the Annecy 2016, said that there was no established method to convey message in a feature animation film. So only those developed by Disney are available. But he said it is possible to develop something new other than these formats. 2 years ago in 2019 at Annecy, I Lost My Body, directed by Jeremy Crapan, received a Grand Prix award in a feature film category. And he employed the software, the Blender, the way he had created three-dimensional CG and live action-like spaces and done shooting in it. So this is an indication that the production methods of the live-action films are being used as one of the choices to improve animation films. And I think that your work, Mr. Iwaisawa, has a similarity with such a global trend. Just coincidence. So what we are seeing on a screen is the studio where you worked? No. Just my place. It's my place. Showing many students without much experience in animation were working at the early stage. I was seeing the production process all the time. And you saw the t-shirt and recruited staff online, and you did crowdfunding. And I would say your method was not really precisely planned in advance. Rather, you were open in what you were doing to enhance engagement with the people. That is your style, isn't it? That's right. This work was not famous at the outset. So I was making the appealing and saying that this is going to be a lot of fun to get people involved. And that was the only way we could take back then, and this is quite similar to the way they do independent live-action film. But if it had not been for SNS or crowdfunding, your work wouldn't exist. That's right. Yes. I think you are a role model giving a new choice to the independent filmmakers. But in reality, in your production method or process, was the biggest issue you face the finance? Budget? Yes. Usually, before we start, we make sure that we have finance or funding for filmmaking. But because this was done independently, so we started something we could do. So we got started without money, and team members, they shared the financial burden when necessary. So we work in a cooperative manner, so slowly but surely, So entire production process, we lack money. When we got the 4 million, nearly 4 million yen through the crowdfunding, so I said in my mind, wow, that's a huge. So that is an indication that we are struggling from the lack of the money for this work all the time.
How much was the production cost, your publicly announced figure? I didn't normally disclose how much, but the production cost itself was about 15 million yen, not including my labor for 7 years, by the way. Okay, got it. In Japan, it's so hard to find a public assistance like that. But you got project to support emerging media arts creators exclusively for the winners of the film art festivals, and you raised 1.5 million yen or so. Yes, to pay for my cast and crew. So in this kind of project, the things like deadlines, the feedbacks are important. And you had a project mentor or advisor assigned to you. Did the scheme itself help you anyway? Yes. So during those 7 years, at every crucial moment with the project or crowdfunding, when I thought it was going to be my last chance, then I got past the screening and received fundings to pay my cast and crew. So the project barely survived. So as a work, on the verge of extinction all the time. So I try to keep myself busy making things, but it's like walking in a long and dark tunnel. During those 7 years, I had a year or two like that, so that was really tough. But every now and then, I was blessed with people, with helping hands. Thanks to them, I've managed to get through it somehow, and here I am. So we are just watching the footage of you preparing for the festival. So financially, you had one crisis after another. That makes it even more amazing that you have mobilized the whole real music festival for shooting your festival sequence. Well, in the world of indie filmmaking, especially in live-action films, I'm exposed with such indie cultures, with lots of people I know. They have a trait of putting their wildest ideas into practice. So no money, but let's just do it because it's cool, and that kind of attitude. So I knew there are people with this level of passion out there. I thought they would find my idea intriguing. So shooting an animation with a real outdoor festival with real audiences, no idea what you're talking about, but I love it. And I believe that there must be some people who would say that. So I was positive I could do it. So, but I also had people who said, it doesn't make sense, but there's no point either. And so I worked my connections really hard, and then ended up with a town called Fukaya in the countryside of Saitama Prefecture, where we put together a purpose-made music festival. And the film commission of this Fukaya was an enthusiastic host for indie filmmakers. If they like the idea, we really buy and help you. And they liked my idea, fortunately, and helped me a lot. So the festival sequence was done at an unexpectedly reasonable cost. So without their help, it was not possible. So the production cost of animation film is so high that you can't do it if you're budget tight, and that's the way it's supposed to. But in the independent Japanese indie live action filmmaking, there is an X factor that makes things move ahead. And I also believe that this kind of expression or sequence will bring my film to the next level That's totally unprecedented, and so I was adamant in doing it, whatever it takes. So I did. Right. Having heard of all your stories so far, your work is really much of an indie film, not simply categorized as animation with DNA of the independent filmmaking. It's totally different animal, I would say. And incidentally, speaking of myself, when I acted in a short film by Takuji Suzuki with the film commission of Fukaya, I worked with the key person you mentioned, Mr. Kowase, and met with the boss of Tajima Kensetsu, a local construction company. I would call it one of the epicenters of the Japanese indie filmmaking. And Kowase-san is really the man of passion. So as a filmmaker, you need to convince him with your passion and commitment. He's a sort of a gatekeeper, your soul or your spirit. So he found them in your film, so decided to help you. I felt it's like a credential. Yeah, this kind of chemistry is so hard to find in the animation industry. If there are any producers who give you a go, just because they like your idea, then you could have expected more unconventional works produced. That's right. So you had a producer for your film, but you also had a producer-like mindset, always thinking about how it's received by the audience. Is this quality you were born with or you acquired along the way? Well, I'm also an audience looking for something that interests me. So honestly, if there were already many great works out there with animation films already so diverse and exciting, then I would feel I wouldn't have to make one myself then. However, when it comes to the animation, the Japanese animation, not much diversity there. So I can't stop feeling like I would have done this, done that if I were them. So many creative ideas, I can't stop. Then, so I decided to make one. So if it's independent or not, once I've started seeing the trend of unique and diverse film born one after another, then I guess it's time for me to put on the producer's hat. Okay, so no one else has done it or no one else is doing it, so you do it. That's how you feel. But it sounds like a lot of things. Yes, it is a lot of things. I see. Just like indie film, the key to tap into the spirit of your film On-Gaku is a factor of indie music. The connection and the collaboration in the indie music circle is really important, I suppose. How did you bring those people on board? You already knew people like OHASHI-san and others? Well, yes. OHASHI-san. So my film is based on this manga, but it wasn't just that. So he had many friends in the music community, which made a lot of influence in the casting of the film. So in the world of independent, be it the film, music, animation, or whatever, in each genre, there are indie people. It's such a small world at the end of the day, so everyone is just one friend away. In such a community, they found my idea interesting, with lots of things in common, and decided to join in. They are all a fan of OHASHI-san's manga, which simply, I guess, that brought them together. So the musicians playing at the music festival scenes were among such people. So that's how those pieces got connected. So both music and live action filmmaking have a great affinity with indie things, probably. Then animation comes into place as a method of expression. But the way the film was made was indie, and that's where things resonated each other. So in the casting or the choice of your voice actors, you may find a lot of familiar names from the independent film industry. And the main character is voiced by Mr. Shintaro Sakamoto, the charismatic musician with lots of enthusiast followers in Japan. And then Mr. Naoto Takenaka, one of the most remarkable actors we have in this country, who made voice appearance in the film. So they were all driven by the urge of creating something interesting, or the idiosyncratic and full of spirit, and then delivering to the world and resonated, right? That's right. So the Shintaro Sakamoto makes animation films himself. So working for 7 years making a feature-length indie anime, he knew firsthand what it takes, and we found it incredible. And I guess this made him feel obliged and kindly accepted the offer. So the film with an energy like this attracted people like magnet. That was a good example. How about Takenaka-san, the actor? Before, he himself, before I reached him for a voice acting offer, he found OHASHI-san's manga by accident, and the original work of my film, and very much attracted by it. And then he approached OHASHI-san, and they got along each other very quickly and excited over the idea of creating something together. And there is the live-action film based on another OHASHI-san's manga called Doki, which is currently on show in Japan and directed by Takenaka-san. And so his joining my project was a natural extension of it. So Takenaka-san got intrigued by On-Gaku project, the OHASHI-san mentioned, and I worked up my courage and asked him, and he happily accepted. So for a low-budget film like mine, we cannot normally even dream of engaging him, so I really enjoyed working on it. So the film On-Gaku, our sound, has become a new genre of its own in the independent Japanese independent film industry. The animation is something that has really been made. But checking out other works of the actors and artists from On-Gaku, that gives you an insight into the interesting Japanese indie expressions. So in music or whatever, and I really want to highlight this aspect, especially for those who are watching from overseas. It could be another way of enjoying this film. That's right. So during those many years of production, what were you really up to? Well, you've already told us a lot about it so far. So having seen it brought to life after 7 years or more, your creation is now watched in different parts of the world. So now, let me take this opportunity to ask you what this On-Gaku really means to you. What is it all about? The beauty of this work, or the message you wanted to tell to the world most? Or have you ever thought of such things? Well, let's see. When I started shooting movies, or when I decided to become a movie director, when I was 20, I was imagining myself in my 30s as a full-fledged filmmaker with some decent works already made. However, when I hit 30, I've already made some short animation films, but I was far from the image of myself I had. So, as a creator, I felt I wasn't really there yet. So I thought, I really had to do something big to catch the wave. And making a feature-length animation film was the idea. So I was 30 or 31 when I started working on it. So I decided to dedicate my next 10 years until I hit 40. It was a gamble, but give it a shot. And if it didn't work, or if no one cared what I made, I thought I could accept the fact or reality. If I make something really believe in and I've done it, I thought I could embrace the reality, whatever that was. So I know it's not easy to put it into practice, but I hope those creators or artists out there will challenge for something what you really believe in and make things you're happy about. And the end result may not always be satisfying, but you will have something satisfying or convincing in your hand. Well, speaking of On-Gaku, it wasn't fully up to the point of satisfying, to tell you the truth. But so that actually fuels my motivation for my next film. And you bring your ideas into shape somehow. That is really worth doing it. I hope in animation and other forms of art, I hope people feel encouraged by that, what I've done. In other words, do you mean that it's getting difficult for people to try something in your life nowadays? I'm not sure it has to do with the current social circumstances. Do you think so? Well, I don't think I can find many works born like that very often. There are so many independent, interesting animation films done by individual creators. There are so many amazing people making amazing things, but I'm not saying that they all should spend 7-10 years making feature-length films, but those talented people, so if they got discovered and helped by a good producer for interesting projects, but I haven't heard of anything like that happening, as far as I know. So I hope my film will be a catalyst to make such changes. So as I said earlier, I'm always an eager audience myself, in search for interesting works that are rich in diversity, so I really wish I could be a catalyst for that. So the film itself is the story of the protagonist's rebirth, or his transformation, for really the story about the change. I wondered if the similar process happening in this challenge of you yourself, Iwaisawa-san. Yes, but it all happened by accident, maybe. There were times when my life was linked to the film in ways I've never imagined. So I guess that's because of your brave challenge, Iwaisawa-san. You involved many people in the process, not just yourself. So I associate what's happening around you to the world expanded, the theme of today's talk session. So by teaming up with other people and taking on apparently a reckless challenge, you will start seeing things you haven't seen before, and that broadened your horizon. So that was what I really felt about. Well, your film and its production process, they're really so. Yes, I really hope people feel that way. When you watch the film, Iwaisawa-san, is that something you look for in the film? Well, personally, I love overwhelming films with some unexpected discoveries or surprises. And when I first became interested in movies, it was always like that. So shocked or emotionally overwhelmed. It's not just about movies, but also about music and art. After watching an overwhelming film, I feel my emotion enriched and encouraged. So lots of positive elements and vibes are flowing in myself. So this kind of positive chain reactions, regardless of the genre, I hope they happen more and more. Recently, I have an impression that generally there are so many dark and gloomy films out there. So watching films, well, rather than feeling happy or cheerful, so disheartening. So watching them makes you feel depressed. So there are very few uplifting positive films. So all you need is just feeling happy and energized. I'm just simply wanting to see more of them. Iwaisawa-san was born in 1981, the same age as me. So in the 90s, you spent your tender teenage years. Any particular films or filmmakers that influenced you? Amongst live actions and animation films? First, in my generation, I think Shunji Iwai is great. So he was sensational in the Japanese cinema. And for the music in my current work, I know there is an influence from the works by Takeshi Kitano. And from the West, Aki Kaurismäki also. And I did not incorporate it into the current film, but I also a fan of Wes Anderson. So he makes quite idiosyncratic and unique films. I personally find an element of entertainment in such works. The names you just mentioned make a lot of sense to me. Very objectivist, dry or naked, I would say. Takeshi Kitano has lots of dry violence in his works. So, manifestation of something physical or corporeal. So, with Anderson also, in a way, he treats human as an object in his approach. So such an aspect of him is where you find an element of entertainment. What's the next project in your pipeline? Well, I'm planning to make another feature-length animation by starting with a pilot version, and this time I have set aside a budget and recruit professional staff, taking a relatively formal approach. So I will make a pilot version to start with. So for this one, the touch will be different from On-Gaku. It will be closer to my own touch. So we'll find more meticulous depiction in the background. So once the pilot version is completed and fund is raised, I'll be ready to start the project at a full scale. So while working the pilot, I've engaged professional animators. So there were things I could not do 100% in On-Gaku, so I wish I could incorporate them into the next work. So what was the things you could not do 100%, just as much as you can tell? Right. So simply, it's about the look of the drawing. So if possible, well, the mob scenes, I wanted more of them due to the limitation during the makings of On-Gaku, such as the number of people, just a handful of people on the ground, so not enough for anything complicated. So use some subtle effects to make the screen rich. That's what not done into perfection on top of my mind I can think of. So in your work, On-Gaku, so the richness is one of the themes, in my opinion. So in other words, things like noise or buzz and hum, things that are normally out of sight. So that suddenly comes into your consciousness. So it's very animistic sensation. What I love about your On-Gaku is the meticulous details of the background. So I can feel something like emotional obsession in the level of details. So rotoscoping was not just a method of creating characters for you. You also used it for capturing the actors' traits like personality or nonchalant mannerism, etc. So the ordinary animation techniques cannot capture them. To inject such subconscious elements into the film, I guess that's why you're using rotoscoping. Having said that, so your direction going forward would be, like you said, you will use more detailed depiction. So I guess it's not for making something photorealistic, but to reveal the hums and buzz of the world. Well, I'm still pondering on the direction. But once I decide to do something, I always want to make something original, like no other. As one of the anime researchers, I would say, or critics, the journey back to the origin of animation. So that's not simply about making still images move, bringing the hum and buzz of the physical world into our consciousness, what I call animistic animation. I really hope you will make more and more of them and deliver to us. Right, so I think it's almost the time to wrap up. So do you have anything else to add, Iwaisawa-san? Or some future plans, or you're looking for supporters, or anything? Well, I have pretty much covered everything. How about the audiences from overseas, new to your work, or any beginner's manual type of advice? Let's see. So the film was born in Japan, and it's the Japanese anime, at least how it's categorized to the rest of the world. But my one came from a little different context. So not sure if you can call it a new type, but it's unique and idiosyncratic. So I hope it reaches to someone who don't normally watch animation films. But once branded as what you call anime, I know it's hard to get away from such a stereotype, but I hope you check it out if you're interested. So in contrast with the modest tone in the beginning, you will see some astonishing visuals towards the end. If you find it interesting, you can watch my films in more and more countries recently, so please check it out. Right. So as a new style of expression in animation and in cinema, I hope this film will reach different corners of the world. I really wish. Okay, it's about the time to close this session now. So thank you very much for the viewers for watching today. This expanded animation event program is featuring other talk events. I hope you will check them out. So for further details, please visit the URL or the QR code on the screen. Once again, really. So thank you very much for staying with us, Iwaisawa-san. Thank you very much. So I would like to close this talk session now. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.